Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of East Got Game, an unofficial podcast about the NBL1 East competition this year covering 2025. My name is Squin. Welcome back to all of our viewers and all of our listeners. And of course, I have with me our regular co-host, commentator extraordinaire, and it looks like you've got a brand new jersey to showcase for us this episode. It's Lockie France. Hello, Lockie. How are you?
G'day, Squin. I am spectacular as always. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Very good. Wearing my very Queensland-looking shirt today that we had a Harmony Week / Harmony Day celebration at work today. I mean, if Queensland wear a shirt, this was it. So I can't complain.
Very nice.
How has your week been so far yourself?
Very good. Got out to the Blitz. The soccer was postponed. As one head coach pointed out when he saw me, shouldn't you be at a soccer game? And yes, I should have been. But
interesting.
So the soccer was postponed, but the Blitz went on. So I got to stay a few extra hours at the Blitz and I got to see all the Saturday women's games. But then I had to, unfortunately, leave.
Well, wonderful. I mean, at least you got to see a little bit of the Blitz and hold that thought about the NBL1 East Blitz 2025. We're going to circle back to that with a very special guest. Just before we get started, though, a reminder to our listeners and our viewers tonight that this episode, we're going to be covering the rest of the men's rosters for the 2025 season. So we're going to be covering everyone from Central Coast Crusaders, Hornsby, Ku-Ring-Gai Spiders, ? And Illawarra Hawks. So those that we haven't covered in episode 3, it's now the remaining men's rosters here in episode 5. Before we get into that, though, we are going to talk about the NBL1 East Blitz in a little bit more detail, and we have a very special guest to join us. Let's bring him on board. It's none other than Caleb Fogarty, who is sporting a BNSW polo shirt because he's now part of the family. Congratulations, Caleb, on your new appointment in BNSW.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. It's good to have East Got Game back. It really feels like the season's just around the corner with the Blitz, but yeah, loving to be part of the BNSW family now and ready for the NBL1 East 2025.
That's really good news. We were both very chuffed to hear that you were going to be part of the family, and especially in the role that you've taken on. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, no, just doing content creator and comms coordinator here. So, doing it for BNSW. A key focus for me coming into the role is the NBL1 East, which, as you both know, is a massive passion of mine, the league, covering it last year as a commentator and doing a bit of content. So yeah, they've roped me in. I'm so stoked to be part of their family, and covering the league this year and doing all the content, very much something I was doing over the Blitz weekend.
Very good indeed, very good. And yeah, the role's going well so far. Are you able to tell us a little bit more about what we can expect from the NBL1 East content this year?
Yeah, look, honestly, we're just trying to get the ball rolling, be as consistent as we can be, really. Very storytelling focus is where we're kind of going. Like, I do have the background in journalism, and I'm sure both of you guys being sports fans yourself, like, there's a lot of stories behind the sports that we love. There's a lot of things this season, like Jason Kadee coming home to Bankstown, Nicole Munger, could she do 3-time MVP? Newcastle, like, I don't really remember a team coming back after winning a championship looking even stronger than when they went into the offseason with the championship. So there's plenty of storylines and a lot of stuff that we're hoping to cover. We've already started that with Next Question. We've already done that, trying to talk to the faces around the league, and we're trying to key into the Waratah League as well. So hopefully get some stuff out there in the future.
That sounds really, really great, Caleb. Lots of content, I'm sure, that's able to be shared, but it sounds like a big job for one person. Is there any chance that you'll be getting some help during the season?
Oh, absolutely. I've got Jaylee Ismay, who's the manager of the media team, with me. She's absolutely a stellar co-worker and boss, so she's awesome. And also Chanel Bailey, who runs the league. She was awesome over the Blitz. She just let me cook up there in the it was quite hot there. I wasn't actually cooking. I was actually probably the only air-conditioned spot in the Penrith Regional Sports Centre, but I will get help, plenty of help, that is. But yeah, looking forward to it. It's going to be a big year, and I'm itching to get going.
Yeah, we saw a few behind-the-scenes videos of the players up in the upstairs in front of the green screen, in front of the curtain. Is there any particular moments that we should be looking forward to seeing drop soon?
Well, you'd be happy to hear, Lockie. I tell you what, there was some piece of content that we did with AC and Lockie Hutch with the Sutherland Sharks. Those boys, they had me in stitches. We had Floyd Mallon on the camera as well. Everyone around the NBL East is well known. Well, they would know Floyd quite well. So him and I, Liv McGregor as well, Rob Sheely over at Illawarra, he helped out. So there was awesome content. But yeah, the one that definitely sticks out was Lockie Hutch and AC. They did bring a lot of smiles to the faces. Manly girls did really well. Everyone was a vibe. Everyone had great attitudes. They weren't too worried about being silly. Even in front of the camera, doing some pose. We had a bit of a lookbook there, so give the players some inspiration, and they were all comfortable going ahead with it. So yeah, big props to the players and the associations for making sure that they were ready and raring to go and fully accepting of what would happen.
Yeah, that's good. That's so great to hear. It's a lot of new content that we're not used to in East. So I think the players are going to appreciate being looked after in that respect. I shouldn't say for a change, but, so bringing them something different, allowing them to be a little bit more involved with the face of the league, giving some opportunity for them for perhaps some fan engagement. So great work so far, Caleb. Very good.
Thank you.
So speaking of the Blitz, we've also got you on tonight, Caleb, just to give us a bit of a recap. But Lockie, I'm going to go to you first because you were there for part of the Blitz and saw mostly women's games. Give us a quick recap of what you saw, some highlights and some lowlights and some things to look forward to for 2025.
Well, I think just about everyone, when you asked them how their games went, responded the same way, and it was scrappy, but it was good. I think that was just about the prevailing theme. I mean, it's tough with some teams to know exactly how they're going because like Nicole Munger wasn't there. That's just one example. Jazz Porcadilla wasn't there for Central Coast. So kind of hard to get a read exactly. Like if you just look at the results, as I always say, trial form's not worth the paper it's written on. But, teams... For a preseason run in a league where we don't get a lot of preseason games, some teams looked good. Others, especially teams missing a point guard, that's kind of difficult. I think Comets, especially without Perini, were kind of. I mean, they said as much themselves. Some of the players I talked to, once they had their full roster, they'll look a lot better. Inner West with Talia Tupaya, she dragged them. Maybe not drag them to a win over Comets, but definitely look good. And word around the campfire is there got a couple more recruits coming, so that should be good. But I think Illawarra looked good against Central Coast. Fortunately, that game was on Court 1, which was slightly cooler than Court 3 and 5. That was good to see. I think I saw Emerson McRae touch the rim during warm up as well, which was cool. Yeah, so that was fun. It was just a good day. Seeing everyone again, and just talking to people. Things you only find out when you bump into someone at the stadium or in the car park or before or after a game, and just have a chat and just a good day out.
Yeah, that's definitely the advantage of these preseason tournaments as well. It's the first opportunity the community can really get together, probably get people a little bit excited for the season ahead and have those conversations. For us three as commentators can certainly dig up some gold nuggets for the commentary box and our insights when we are commentating just from those conversations. So tournaments like the Blitz can be really helpful like that. But let's quickly just bring up the results from the women's competition. I'm just going to quickly share the screen here. So it looks like Penrith hosting Club getting away with a loss, unfortunately, in the opening match to Hornsby. But on the plus side, it looks like despite Hornsby not announcing any players for their men's and women's roster, they obviously suited up and turned up. So that's a good sign. And as you can see, North's getting up over heels in the second game. Inner West, as you mentioned, defeating the Sydney Comets. Central Coast over Illawarra. Canberra over Bankstown. Manly Warringah over Newcastle, and Maitland over Sutherland on that first day. And heading into the second day of the women's competition, we have Hornsby beating Newcastle, Inner West beating Bankstown, Canberra beating Sydney, North beating Illawarra, Maitland defeating Hills, Sutherland and Central Coast looks like an NA. So I've been told that due to player numbers, I think that game was agreed upon not to go ahead. And then Manly with a convincing win over Penrith as well. Caleb, did you get a chance to see much of the women's competition at the Blitz?
Oh, look, we were up in that media room for a majority of it. The way the Penrith Regional Valley Centre looks, though, you can kind of see over the main court. So I did manage on the Sunday to actually have a proper look out over to the Newcastle Hornsby game. And Jessie Mayhall, she's just so good, isn't she? She's just very good at basketball. There's no other way to say it. Everyone that was there was just kind of, all the players were just kind of watching over the court, and she just is just on another level. I'm so excited for her this year. That was really the only time I had a chance to go out and see the women's game. I saw a bit of the Inner West on Sunday as well. I had to go get some highlights, and Talia Tupaea, she made my job quite easy because there was 30 seconds left in that first quarter, and she decided to just go on a 5 points run by herself. So I grabbed what I needed there, and I just shooked on back to the media room. But honestly, the competition's really good, but those were the two players that really stood out to me in the women's comp.
Very good indeed. And what about the men's competition? Did you get a chance to see much of the men's competition, Caleb?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie. I wandered over and checked out the Sutherland-Maitland game when I could. It was quite, you said scrappy. It was very scrappy, but it was very chippy as well. Like, there was a lot of pushing and shoving. Adrian Cabrera got a nice little cut under his eye. We did just put up a post as well. Dan Milburn, of course, the old rock in the shoe, we like to call him, on the Maitland Mustangs game, did get into a little bit of a push and shove as well. So, obviously, 2 grand final rivals from the past. No love lost between them. But yeah, Sutherland looked really good, and Maitland looked very different without a Will Cranston-Lown at the point guard.
Yeah, that's going to be really, really interesting to see how Maitland shape up. I mean, they've got very great, a lot of great players that fill his shoes, but I think just what he brings to that team in terms of his playing style and his foot speed, and how he can just light it up when they need it it's going to be a different looking Maitland without him. But that's a team that we'll be covering a little bit later in the episode, so we'll be able to chop it up in a bit more detail. I'm just going to bring up as well now the men's results from the Blitz on the screen. And you can find all the results on the NBL1 East Instagram page and social media outlets as well. So it looks like the first game of the NBL1 Blitz for the men's competition was Canberra and Bankstown, and Canberra with a convincing win there. Manly Warringah went on to beat Newcastle. Central Coast went on to beat Illawarra. Sydney Comets got a win over the Inner West Bulls. Sutherland and Maitland, it looked like a tight competition as well on the score sheet, 96-87, with the Sharkies getting up in that occasion. Penrith Panthers defeated Hornsby Ku-Ring-Gai Spiders, and the North Bears finished the first day by beating Hills Hornets. And on day 2, Canberra again with the earlier game, and they lost to Sydney Comets only by 3 points. Newcastle defeated Hornsby. North Bears defeated Illawarra. Hills beat Maitland by 3 points as well, so that would have been nice and close. A very entertaining game to watch for a Sunday. Sutherland Sharks beat Central Coast. Manly Warringah Seagulls defeating Penrith. And to close out the day, a 2-point win, Bankstown over Inner West. So yeah, men's competition looking very tight, but I believe, Lockie, that there are a lot of key players missing from both the men's and women's rosters. Is that right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I don't think any team I watched was at full strength. I mean, I mentioned Munga, Perini. Bankstown women didn't have their imports. Bankstown men didn't have Kadee on the first day. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I think if you think back to it, just about any Maitland women didn't have Shakira Riley. Central Coast didn't have Jazz Falcadillo. I mean, I just kept going. I'll just keep thinking of more and more players. But I think I've made my point.
Yeah. Caleb, what were the notable omissions for you?
Oh, look, I honestly, as I said, I didn't catch many games, but the Bankstown one, no Kadee on the first game, but I will say that second game, I did manage to catch Kadee. In that second game, he looked every bit like the player that we were expecting. He said he was sore and because he'd just been moving all weekend, but he did just shook on and he looked so good. Surprising. I know you were talking about omissions, but there was some surprising additions for the other teams. Seeing Leilani Mitchell again suit up for the Central Coast Crusaders. We saw her there Saturday. So there was a couple of little, and Jessie Mayhall, as we said before, but she hadn't been announced either. So there was some good people that did play, but the omissions, yeah, there was, as Lockie's covered majority of them. I was definitely hoping to see Davida Dale for Bankstown. Her defense was just spectacular last year. I think when we were commentating her in Maitland, she nearly got a quadruple double. She got like 9 steals. She was 1 steal short. Never seen a defender like that. So I was disappointed not to see her, but we'll be able to see plenty of her in 2025.
Well, she's been busy playing in the UK, actually getting a quadruple double. Probably the first. She's probably the first in the newly formed professional women's league over in the UK, I imagine. But I can't imagine that anyone, especially not in NBL1 East history, but perhaps even before that, when it was still champions, or what did we call it? Waratah League, Waratah Champions. I can't be certain that there was another female athlete that got a quadruple double in that time. So maybe this is the year that she's going to get it done for NBL1 East.
She'll have all the opportunity on that Bankstown roster, I reckon. So I'm a betting man, or not anymore, not on basketball, I should say. But yeah, I should say that. That.
It's on the record. It's on the record.
On the record. But I reckon she's good for it this year.
Yeah, we're very excited to see her and see her in the Bankstown colours too. But before we say goodbye to you, Caleb, is there anything that you would like to mention to our NBL1 East fans and Eastcock game listeners out there ahead of the season, or anything that you need to plug?
Nothing really. Just honestly, just keep up to date with the NBL1 East. Like, we're on the way up. Like, this league is just getting bigger and bigger every year. I've been a part of it now. I missed the first year, just life happens, but 2022 was my first year doing commentary, 2023 and this year. Every year it's grown. I think with the players that we've brought over, that we've seen start signing up for these associations with these teams, it just shows how much growth there is in the NBL1 East. So just make sure you're just following the NBL1 East page, follow Eastcock Game, 2 feet into paint, love of the game, Silver Slashes, just really embrace all this media surrounding this league, because I don't think there's another NBL1 conference that has the support like an Eastcock Game. I think just definitely embrace everyone and follow the content, because the stories around the conference is just, you don't want to miss it. There's really good basketball happening here in New South Wales.
We couldn't agree more. Hey, Lockie?
100%.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Caleb. I'm sure we'll talk to you again throughout the season, and we'll hit you up for some preseason. Well, it won't be preseason predictions, because we're going to allow 2 weeks at least for the first 2 rounds to happen before we reach out to our peers again for their predictions, because what happened last time was that we didn't have half the rosters, and then we all looked a bit silly. So
it was a bit harder last year.
It was very hard, wasn't it? Yeah. It's like we'll make a prediction, and then a week later it's like LJ's announced, and it's like, well, that just throws everything out, doesn't it?
I felt pretty good about myself when I did. I think I said Bawali Bales last year. was one of my top, was going to be the top player. I ride or die for Bawali on that one. I was pretty happy with that.
Oh yeah, you weren't too far from the truth. He was a noticeable admission actually from the MVP conversation, but we won't unpick old wounds, will we?
No.
Reopen old wounds, that's the saying. All right. Thanks heaps, Caleb. I'm sure we'll talk to you again very soon, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thanks for having me, guys. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Very nice of Caleb to drop in on the last minute. And remember to go and follow NBL1 East on all of your social media platforms, particularly on platforms like Instagram, where Caleb is doing a lot of great work, creating and uploading some very fresh content to showcase our league. I should also mention that if you are happy, if you're joining us live on YouTube or Instagram, feel free to drop in a comment on either of the chats. And if it is appropriate, or if you have a question, we can always put your comments from YouTube up on the live stream, and those on Instagram. I'm also checking if you've got any questions or comments that we feel we can have a chat about. But otherwise, Lockie, this is episode number 5. We are going to showcase the rosters, the remaining of the men's rosters that we didn't showcase in episode 3. Are you ready to get stuck into it?
I am. Episode 5.
Hooray. I can't believe we're at episode 5 already. Only another 25 to go. Or thereabouts. That's probably way too many.
I can do another 25 if you want.
Yeah, I know you could do another 25. I bet you can. And like Caleb said, there are so many great stories around the league. We could probably fill another 25 episodes with something. But let's just focus on episode 5 for today. And the first men's team that we're going to talk about ahead of the 2025 season is the Central Coast Crusaders. Here is some of their stats. Now, I'm aware that the logo is probably covering part of it, so I might try and move that if possible. But here we go. As we have in the previous couple of episodes, Lockie has very kindly made all these graphics for our live stream episodes. First, we've got some 2024 season facts. Lockie, take it away. What are you seeing here? Oh, what have you got to show us here with these facts?
Well, first of all, their top scorer, Robbie Heath, and top rebounder, Ben Stevens, not yet announced, not back by the look of it, possibly. So that's already a big thing for a team that finished 5-15 last year. And I will say it probably for the last time that if they had everyone all season last year, they would have done a lot better. I think that was the one thing we got out of Crusaders season last year. Yes. But good to see that they get to the line and make the most of it a lot. And they don't turn the ball over a lot. But that is, on the flip side, they didn't shoot it all that well, and their defense wasn't too crash hot. So if your defensive rating is down near 13th and your offensive rating isn't considered a statistical strength, that's going to make it very tough. Committing 20 fouls per game and putting the free opposition at the line almost as often as you're there, it's really burning one of the strengths you have to do that.
Yeah, and sure, the aim of the game is to score more points than your opposition, but the other half of that is A, you have to stop the opposition from scoring as many points. But B, if you're going to shoot it that much, you have to. It's kind of like the double-edged sword of the things you're not supposed to do. It's like you're missing too many shots and you're letting too many of their shots in, and that, I'm not very good at maths, but that doesn't equal a win.
No.
But yeah, I remember particularly with the Crusaders men last season, they certainly had a lot of great pieces and a lot of new pieces to the Crusaders program as well, being people like Ben Stevens and Robbie Heath. But I think I feel like it took them a little bit too long last season to build up a chemistry, for people to understand their roles, and for some of the key players to have trust in the other players. So there were lots of times where perhaps some players were shooting a little bit too much and not trusting that their teammate could shoot and score just as well as them if given the opportunity. So it's just unfortunate that took a little while to gel for the Crusaders. But yeah, let's see what happens this season. And I guess with that, let's look at the roster as it stands. Like you said, yeah, Callum McDonald, Shan Nye are definite outs. Sorry, apologies. Under that logo, it does say TBA. So the likes of Ben Stevens, Robbie Heath, like you mentioned, James Trustham. He's been a Crusader for a very, very long time. He's been in that starting five a long time. Not as long as someone like William Bates. William Bates, I think last year, or perhaps I think it was last year, celebrated his 20th consecutive season playing for the Crusaders in some way. But yeah, so JT not on the roster is somewhat surprising and a little bit of a, not disappointment, but I'm a little bit sad that he's not there.
Yeah, he's like a name I knew even before I was following the men's league, like back when I was just really only watching women's Waratah. It's just a name like you couldn't avoid seeing because he was there for so long.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a bit odd without him. The likes of him and Ty, and it's weird for me saying William Bates, Wombat. Everyone knows him as Wombat. It is odd when those three guys aren't there because they've been such anchors for that men's program for such a long time through all the highs and lows. But it looks like Time again is going to be playing Waratah League for the Central Coast Waves. I'm not too sure I can't remember if I saw on the roster if JT or Wombat are on that roster. But there were rumors that JT was heading towards retirement. I hadn't seen anything official, but then again, I'm not too sure if he's the type of guy to make an official announcement. So maybe he's just gone out quietly. But let's focus on the roster that we do have. Who's standing out to you? Who are you most excited for in this roster, Lockie?
Well, it's bittersweet to say it, but it's got to be Clarus, really, doesn't it? We had him at Sutherland. He showed flashes of just how good he can be. We talked about him in a previous episode, but I think Central Coast have really got a good one here, and I think he can. He'll definitely be. When you're as young as he is, it's impossible not to get better if you're putting in the work he's putting in. So I think he averaged about 10 or so points per game last year. I think that number is probably set to rise quite a bit higher this season. And I think he'll probably get he'll probably be more of a focal point of the offense than he was able to be coming into what was a fairly set Sutherland team at the time. Sutherland, not just a fairly set Sutherland team, but a lot of guys that have been there for a very long time, and just reached the grand final together. So really looking forward to seeing how he does at Central Coast. 1 year on from his time at Sutherland.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely going to be a focal point of their offense, and I think he's going to complement the likes of Luke Cassidy and Alex Bailey quite well. I'm expecting Cassidy and Bailey to continue their point guard duties, and I'm expecting, say, Washington and Amir to slip into that shooting guard role for the Crusaders. And I think that as well, like Clarice, I think is a similar age to those guys too. So you know what you tend to see with teams, if they have a really great rapport off court and they can kind of like have fun together, get in the gym together and kind of build that friendship off the court, it will translate nicely on court. And I can see this happening for this young Crusaders team. A lot of them have grown up playing together as well. So the likes of Jamal Schwabe, Seth Chapman, Hayden Gunderson, I remember watching them as juniors playing for the Rebels, and now they get to start to step into the big shoes of NBL1 East. And they're all very talented as well. I think this is going to be perhaps the new dynasty of the Crusaders. That was previously the Bates, McGann, Trustham, Rebellion kind of, or Cracknell kind of dynasty that we used to see in this Crusaders men's program. I think this is going to be the new chapter.
You missed the most important name.
No, Tom.
Jesus.
Oh, of course. Callum Jenkins, of course. He was, of course, part of that dynasty as well. But I was trying to think of players who have played in like maybe the last 3 years. But
Yeah.
I mean, you can't deny Callum Jenkins. I mean, put the guy's statue at the front of the stadium, really.
Really?
Just a statue of that tip in to help the Crusaders men win the championship just before it became NBL1 East. Just that's all we need. But Washington's going to be great. Have you watched now this is how I'm going to pronounce it. I did try and look up some footage of this particular player to try and get the pronunciation of this last name correctly. But like Lino Manum, that's how I'm going to pronounce it. How are you going to pronounce it?
I would say Lino, but I didn't find video that had his didn't find pronunciation, so
I heard some commentators say man home, but I was like, I don't know if that's correct. I'm gonna have to contact Coach Miko and double check. But he's the 7-footer that the Crusaders have recruited this season. And I have confirmed that he's probably going to be the only true big for the Crusaders this season. So they're going to be running a little bit smaller, quick and guard heavy, a whole lot of shooters. I think the next in line that can play under the basket would be Seth Chapman. But otherwise, I think they're looking a little bit small.
Yeah, it's a weird one in that when you've got a 7-footer on the court, and then when you don't, it's the complete opposite kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like you'll have a lot more breathing space when that 1 7-footer is taking a rest. Yeah. Or maybe he will just be playing 40 minutes every game. I don't see that happening.
Not being 7 foot, not being 7 foot, I can't speak to how you would go playing 40 minutes.
No,
I've got to measure myself right when I wake up in the morning just to get to 6, let alone 7.
And of course, they've got Garrick Young, who's coming from the Tamworth Thunderbolts from the Waratah League as well. So they've got a lot of scoring power in those guard spots, but their Achilles heel seems to be in the front court. Shall we move on to Hills? Oh, sorry, you go.
I mean, I was just going to say, yes, they look a little thin in the front court, but if they've got everyone there from the start, which was their big issue, that's the main thing. They get this roster here from day dot. Those two things combining is what will put them on an upward trajectory.
Fingers crossed for them. And as you said in the previous slide, they can have the opportunity to get the split on Bankstown, Hornsby, Maitland, Newcastle North. So, they've got quite a task. That's tough. That's very, very tough. All right, let's move on to the Hills Hornets men's team, starting off with their 2024 season facts, including a win-loss record of 9-11, and unfortunately just missing out on finals in absolutely devastating circumstances last season. Oh, I still feel for you, CB, if you're listening.
Me too, because I went down to that Hills Illawarra game that kicked off, that last weekend, where they got the win, then they got the other win, and then Bankstown went to overtime to put them out. It was,
And Manly was caught up in it as well a little bit. And I remember we had CB and Mason brag on a very quick Instagram live episode, and they were talking about the potential matchups and results ahead of that weekend. And
because Mason and Manly had to win to keep Hills alive, and they did it for them. And but Bankstown got it done on the final day.
Everyone counted out Bankstown, and I'm like, don't shut the door on us just yet. Here we come. The top scorer was Chris Bryant, 26.3 points per game, and top rebounder with 8.3. And Ishmael Sanders, should I say Ish, Ishmael sounds very formal. Led assists with 3.9 assists per game. But unfortunately, probably a little bit more of room to improvement as well. Lockie, take us through it.
Yeah, so, I mean, yes, a little bit of room to improve. I mean, they missed finals by the barest of margins, but they were right in the hunt. They slipped late. I mean, assists not great, defensive rating not great, and defensive rebounding rate not great. And when your opposition is shooting 47%, you're not getting as many opportunities to get defensive rebounds, and you still know, like 66.8%. That's giving the opposition that's basically every third shot they take, they're getting a second opportunity. I mean, points in the paint, 36. That should be 36.6 per game. But I guess like you had CB there, but he doesn't mind playing out on the perimeter a bit, so he's sort of, take from one side, give to the other kind of thing. But kept their turnover rates down, and opposition second chance points. They might have given up a few too many offensive rebounds, but they didn't really let their opponents convert them into second chance points. So, but it's still a lot of extra defense to play. And I think sometimes that's also part of it, is, all those extra 14 seconds of defense you have to play, giving up offensive rebounds. It gets in your legs after 40 minutes.
Yeah, it definitely does. That's when you need to be reaching for the pickle juice in that final timeout in the fourth quarter, just to hold off the cramps and keep going until the final siren. So they play Albury Wodonga Bandits, Bankstown Bruins, Inner West Bulls, and Sutherland Sharks and Sydney Comets twice this season. So their opportunity to get the split on them if possible. That's also looking like a pretty tough run for the Hills Hornets. But I feel like I'm going to say that for pretty much everyone now. And I just realized that I still have the Crusaders banner up. There we go. Now it says Hills. But let's look at this roster. We know now that, CB and Ish Sanders are on the TBA list, but probably unlikely to come back.
Well, they won't be at Hills because Hills have signed 2 new imports.
They're correct. They sure have. Yeah. So that's not to say that they won't come back for another club. You're right. But yes, it won't be for Hills. One of the imports being Meek Payne. Have you looked at very much film on Meek Payne, Lockie?
I did, aside from Lachlan Hudson posting all his individual workouts throughout the off-season, which is very nice to see. I did watch some of his college highlights, playing for CSU Pueblo, I believe. And before that, he played for University of New Hampshire, but I watched his CSU Pueblo highlights in D2. Can definitely get up. Lots of blocks and dunks in it, but can certainly rise up for his shot as well and shoot over people. Came from Big V D1, which is actually the second level of Big V, but was having 20 games down there for Whittlesea. Got to the point where I don't think there were just enough possessions in a game for him to get more stats than he got, kind of thing. When you get to stats that high, you're just like, well, sometimes other people do have to do things on the team, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to try and get, most people involved rather than just be like, you can do it all. I'm just going to run up and down the sideline.
Exactly. It was he got 27 and 20, and it's like, well, could he have got more if they'd, could he do the same at a higher level, which I guess remains to be seen. But certainly looks the part.
Yeah, definitely. From the footage that I saw online, I really liked how Meek can play through some contact. Looks like he's got a really quick first step. And I really liked how he was able to find some very unique and precarious gaps when he's driving to the basket. And he looks slightly like in the matchups that I saw in that footage for when he was playing for Whittlesea, he looks like he was slightly bigger and a little bit longer compared to the regular guards. Like he almost looked like he should be playing in the 3 spot, but he was playing like a 2-man. And so I wonder how he's going to size up against the guards in NBL1 East. Yeah. Did you see something similar?
Yeah, I did, especially with his length. That was something I really noticed as well. It's just how long he is. When I say he can shoot over people, that's partly because he's got such reach. He pretty much nailed it, Swin. What he was doing at Whittlesea is pretty much transferred from his college days.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a very American style of play. And I mean, that's obviously why people like to sign him for those assets. So it's going to be interesting to see how he matches up against the existing guards or the guards that have played a long time in NBL1 East that maybe potentially could match him for size. But yeah, he's a very unique package. So I'm excited to see him. I think overall this roster is quite a young, versatile roster. I really liked how last season they all played their roles really well around CB and Ish, but they're all really willing to hustle. And I think that that's what they're going to bring again this season. So like really great role players, willing to do the dirty work of chasing down rebounds, diving on the ball, things like that always make a big difference. Because who was that? Do you remember that game that we reviewed for last season? It was Hills versus Maitland, and that's the game where Hills won in Maitland. And that's when I saw some of these young people really start to shine. Do you recall that same game that we watched?
Yeah, and I think that's the game when we were talking about Manly and talking about Jack Giddens and Jamie Munro. I think that was one of the games that stood out among others. But, I mean, some of these guys, they're still young, but they've been around a while. Saxon Orsini, he's coming back from injury, but I actually called his debut, and he was just out there looking hungry straight away. Well, like Liam Moss, Joe Patmore, Marv Bedell, I mean, Mitch Smith, we've seen them for a few seasons. They always just get out there and they are just, lunch pail guys.
Yes, lunch pail guys. Yes, that's really put that on a t-shirt, Hills Hornets, and put an EGG logo at the back. But I think that's lunch pail guys is a really good collective name for them. Collective noun almost. Yeah. The other person on this roster that I'm excited for is Jacob Foy. So for those that don't know, Jacob grew up in Port Macquarie before his family moved to Newcastle, where he really flourished under the very successful and strong Newcastle Juniors program. He spent 3 years playing for University of Hawaii. And then since he's come back, he spent some time at NBL1 South, which includes one or two nationals wins with the Knox Raiders. Under some very good coaching with a very good roster that won the Nationals last season. But for me, I hope that he is going to come to Hills and he'll have a bigger role because he's a very talented guy. Obviously, not everyone gets to go to Hawaii. So he's got the basketball chops. He's pretty much someone that grew up with a basketball in his hand, given that he's from a basketball family. But I remember when he played for Knox, he was a bit more of a bench guy, come on and have a particular role of getting some quick threes, hustling on defense. But he wasn't like one of their core players in the core rotation. So I hope that he has a bigger role now that he's coming to Hills. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree. He played, I think, 15 minutes or so per game last season for Hills, for Knox, but didn't get a lot of opportunity. I don't think a lot of plays will really run for him, kind of thing. And I think, if you can come back, I mean, it's not quite home, but I'll tell you what, getting from Castle Hill to Newcastle is a lot easier than getting there from Melbourne. So, you come back to, at least somewhere near home. Probably a roster where, I mean, any roster is easier to get minutes in than Knox's, let's be honest. I think it's just a real opportunity for him to, get back, play hopefully 25, 30 minutes a game, if not more. We'll see how it all pans out, what the rotations are like. But I couldn't be more stoked for a great opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I can see him even being, in the big three with Hudson and Payne, perhaps. I think it's realistic to expect him to be playing at least 25 minutes a game. So fingers crossed we get to see his talent showcase a little bit more this season. Of course, Zachary Hudson, I think we mentioned in our first episode of season 3, very big signing for Hills Hornets as well. What was I was going to say, other than Zach Hudson though, Lockie, where's the front court? Who's filling in this front court for Hills Hornets?
Just run it, boys.
I feel like they're going to be in a similar issue as the Crusaders that we just spoke about. Like they're running a lot of guards and they're running quick and they're running a lot of shooters, but who's going to be protecting their rim?
They've still got a few in the TBA column, but who knows? They've still got room to sign a couple more, and they've been drip feeding us a bit. We weren't expecting Jay Kirasome for the women. And then they topped that with Cherie Kalea. So maybe the Hornets men have got another up their sleeve as well.
Yeah, maybe CB's. Oh no, we said that CB can't come back, like you said, because he's got 2 imports. Even though CB's off in Indonesia, but yeah, I'm worried about their front court. But yeah, hopefully they've got something up their sleeve, like you mentioned. But just before we finish up with Hills Hornets, I just want to give the club and their social media team a big shout out, because I don't know about you, Lockie, but I'm loving these roster announcements videos from Hills Hornets this season, because not only is it's not just like a typical kind of photo post on their social medias of like, hey, we've signed this person and a bit of a spiel, which we still love, by the way. Don't ever stop doing that to any club. But instead, Hills are now uploading, Instagram reels that have like a whole video showcasing where the players kind of started their career and what they're looking for the next season. I'm loving it. What about you?
It's so well done as well. It's real, because they go in and you see Cherie starts and she laughs, or most of them, they start to talk and then they laugh and they're like, oh, or someone was like, what was the question again? And then once they get talking, then they just play that over some actual highlights. So it feels really properly produced as well. It's a great concept and it's executed really well. Like the triangle offense. Great concept and executed really well.
I 100% agree. The production value on these video announcements are really high. If you go back and watch Saxon or Orsini's video, and they've overlaid it with footage of him playing as a tiny kid for Hills Hornets when he was a junior, as he was talking about where he started, it's actually really cool. I really, really enjoy it. So massive shout out to Hills. We love your work. Please keep it up. Okay, are we ready to move on to the next team, or what we know so far?
Sure.
This one may be a bit short and sweet, but is the Hornsby Ku-Ring-Gai Spiders men's team. In 2024, they had a win-loss record of 3-17, finishing 14th, which obviously meant they did not qualify for finals. Their top scorer was Aaron Redhead, who averaged 13.9 points per game. And the top rebounder was Alexander Sidhu, who averaged 6.6 rebounds per game, with Raymond Takshi averaging 3.8 assists per game. Obviously, lots of room to improvement, given where they finished on the ladder last season, but they certainly had a lot of statistical strengths as well, Lockie.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned this with a couple of the women's teams that were lower, and I think some of the men's teams, in that few teams getting what they can, like the fast break points, 10.8 per game. Get out and run. Yeah, that's an easy basket when you get the opportunity. You know, if you know you've got a tough matchup in the half court, get out and run. Non-paint 2 scoring, top of the league, threes and layups. We love it. But I mean, yes, the rooms to improve. You know, 3 things they're bottom of the league in, and you mentioned with Central Coast. You know, if the opposition's shooting it well and you're not shooting it well, unless you're racking up Davida Dale level steals, you're not going to be able to overcome that issue. And I mean, just giving up too many opportunities to the opposition. But I mean, they finished 3-17. I mean, there's going to be room to improve. That's just how it works.
And they had, you know, essentially a brand new roster from 2023 and a new coach. And there were certainly a lot of great signs of this men's program rebuilding and showcasing a lot of talent. So we're hoping that they were able to retain a lot of that roster from 2024 so they can continue to build on what they started. Because, yeah, they certainly have a lot of potential. Hopefully they've got a few more key signings to help them to improve on that 3-17 record, but they've still got a lot of potential to improve on that record. I'm pretty confident that they won't be finishing the 2025 season with 3-17.
No.
So let's have a look at this roster, shall we? And you know what I'm going to do? I had to play that again because still we've given them, you know, like we did our Believe the Hype episode, 4 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
Hopefully that, you know, talking about some of the key signings announced so far, everything prefaced with so far, in the hope that by the time we got to this episode, Hornsby would have announced someone, but we got nothing. You got a couple in the outs column. Speak to me about that.
Just a couple of guys that are off at college. So Isaiah Walters at UMass Lowell in Massachusetts, D1 school, and Kingsley Jesse Bisa is at Western Wyoming Community College. So they're outs for now, but as we know with college guys, especially I think JUCO guys could still come back and play, and sometimes players just come home from college and decide they're not going to go back. I mean, Emma Donnelly from Norse is one, so they're outs for now, but they're also kind of TBAs.
Yep, and that TBA list is very long, and all I can add from that TBA column over to the confirmed roster is Aaron Redhead, because that's one person I could clearly see based on the footage that I saw on social media on the weekend during the NBL1 Blitz competition. Did you recognize anyone else while you were there, or did you not have a chance? I don't think you had a chance to see the men's, right?
Didn't really see them, but I did manage to fortunately the 2 Feet into Paint boys are also the Hornsby commentators, and they were tagging like crazy on Insta, and I'm pretty sure I saw them tag Nate Chappell, Raymond Takchi, and I think Stephen Hall's back as well. And word around the campfire is Daniel Titus, who
yes,
I had great memories of commentating in a Youth League Grand Final, which unfortunately Central Coast lost, but still a great game that was. And he's been killing it up in Queensland, up in your neck of the woods, Queen.
Yeah, he certainly has. So just to back you up there, I have also had a couple of different people confirm that Daniel Titus will be playing for Hornsby Ku-Ring-Gai, but I don't think he was there on the weekend. Or if he was, I don't think he suited up. But yeah, he was playing for the Gold Coast Rollers, who was coached by Anthony Petrie. So for those that don't know Anthony Petrie, he was, a great NBL player in his own right. His wife was also a really great WNBL player when she was able to play, and now he has, I think, 2 or 3 daughters that are playing at a high level. Definitely at least Emma Petrie, who's playing for Nebraska in the NCAAW. Oh, sorry, Jess Petrie. And then Emma's going to join. I can't remember if she committed somewhere, but Jess is definitely playing for Nebraska, and I think Emma maybe committed. I can't remember, but they're talented nonetheless. So, yeah, Titus doing great things for Gold Coast Rollers. He was someone who I think he even started a couple of games. So this is a Rollers team that had Jason Cadee and Will Magnay, and then Titus was starting a few games alongside, the two Boomers. Yeah, and he was, obviously a role player in that team, but he was able to showcase his talents. He had a few great dunks. He was able to score from the 3-point line. Like, he was really accelerating his game playing up here. So that's why I was kind of surprised that he didn't stick around a little bit longer.
Oh, again, another conference's loss is East Game, the homecoming. It continues.
The homecoming. Yeah, it would have been a true homecoming if Titus came back and signed for the Crusaders, but we'll still take it that he's at least back in the East, so it is still somewhat of a homecoming.
Yes.
But otherwise, I don't think I have any other notes on Hornsby because that's all we can really go off. But thanks to the 2 Feet in the Paint boys for putting up some footage on their social media pages so we could try and get a sneaky look of who was there. Okay, let's move right along down to the South Coast. We're going to talk about the Illawarra men. Here are some stats from their 2024 season. They had a win-loss record of 2-18, finishing 15th, obviously meaning they didn't qualify for finals, unfortunately. Riley Abercrombie was their top scorer and top rebounder, averaging 23.3 points per game and 7.7 rebounds per game, respectively. And Lockie Dent, only making a cameo appearance in that 2024 season, but still led assists as a Dent does, with 7.3 assists per game. And now, Lockie, I think that record of 2-18 for the Illawarra Hawks doesn't truly reflect how competitive they were, particularly at the back end of the season.
No, so once they had Dent and Abercrombie and Frierson, who was, God, he was so fun to watch, Matthew Frierson. Once they had all three of those, kind of clicking, Brad Ballinger as well, everyone just sort of getting the full side on court and everyone coming back from Europe. They looked much better than the 2-18. I mean, I don't have game-by-game stats at hand to slice it after a certain date, but I think if you would see significant improvement after a certain time.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree. Absolutely. And talk to me about some of the other strengths and things to improve for Illawarra that you've got up here.
Well, last season they shot the three a lot, but it didn't go in a whole lot. So that's probably a problem. Free throw percentage wasn't great and they committed a lot of fouls. So, again, one thing you're a weakness in is also what you're giving the opposition opportunity to do. And I think the fact that their 3-point rate was high and their 3-point percentage was low just makes the points in the paint rate that is 15th in the league just even more of a glaring issue. If you're going to shoot a lot of threes and not make them, well, maybe you should, try to get the ball into the paint a bit more often. But, to be fair, because we're going to go to the next slide and look at the roster, how much of this are we just going to be able to, print it out, scrunch it up and throw it away?
Yes, throw it away into a waste paper basket, as someone like Todd Blanchfield and McDowell White will probably throw away, make a couple of threes, I think, this season for Illawarra. But yeah, that roster is short, but it is sweet. We already spoke about in a previous episode about the signings of Blanchfield and McDowell White. And now they have added, in the meantime, since our first episode, they've added Bradley Ballinger and Patrick Lancaster, who are two outstanding locals that have played the last couple of seasons. CJ Moran, Sean Mullen, another local, and Toby Campbell. Looking pretty good so far, I think.
They are. CJ Moran, another homecoming. Interesting, I found out today about CJ Moran has played for the Syrian national team.
Oh, wow. How did you find that? That's a deep cut.
I just was looking him up today, and it was like 6. It was like, because like it comes up like in the heading FIBA stats. I'm like, oh, he must have gone and played 3x3 tournament or something. It's like, nope, FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers. Wow, okay. So that's pretty cool for the Mackay. Was he Mackay's Defensive Player of the Year last season, I think? Which is
yes, it was
good.
And Toby Campbell as well, for those that don't know, he played for the Darwin Salties last season up here in the north. And unfortunately, the Salties won't be returning to NBL1 North. I'm not too sure if they're yet to return to any NBL1 competition. There was rumor that they were going to join Central, but I'm not too sure what's panned out. So they may be sitting 2025 on the bench, unfortunately. But I digress. Toby Campbell, based on the footage that I've seen, really good role player, very mobile and agile in that 4 to 5 position. I think he's going to be really, really solid in the front court for Illawarra, and perhaps another player who will have a good opportunity to increase his minutes now that he's come to the East.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Flynn would have been his coach at Darwin as well, and now coaching Illawarra. So going back to the well, finding a player you like, bring them down. But yeah, like you said, it's a short roster. I like the Sean Mullins back. It's been a couple of years. Crushed. But the Philly cheesesteak, Illawarra, the big sweaty boy is gone. But
big sweaty boy, he's taken his sweat elsewhere.
He has filled the push. But I mean, the first 2 signings alone almost confirmed that they were going to do better than 2 and 18. And it's just got better from there. At a defense with Moran, they've added Ballinger, brought back Paddy Lancaster, added a bit in the front court with Toby Campbell. And I mean, there's still a few names on the TBA list, and a lot of them are locals. So if they fill out the bench, sprinkling a few of those in, it'll already be a massive upgrade. And if they can bring Abercrombie and or Dent back from, are they both playing in Europe at the moment? Bring at least one of those back, the Hawks will be flying.
We love to see it. And so Mike, I think from what I've been told at the Blitz, the majority of the men's Hawks roster was filled with their youth league players, who I suspect would be either playing youth league and NBL1 East, or the youth league players that are in the fringe squad, like for development. My question is, the Illawarra Hawks men's side had a pretty good roster a couple years ago, and they had the likes of Dave O'Hickey, Tim Conrad, Lucas Waxy Walker, all on their roster. But the problem was that a couple of those big players didn't play consistently. They only cherry picked a few games here and there, which was obviously to their detriment. So question is, are Todd Blanchfield and Kobe McDowell-White, can we expect them to play the majority of the games? Or are they just going to cherry pick some games?
I think in this situation, especially Kobe, wanting to make an impression, and I think Todd as well. I think it feels like how much earlier it was all sorted. It feels very, very much like they're fully on board. And with Matt Flynn around, who's so involved, that has been so involved with the NBL side, it feels like there's more of a connection there. And I think some of those players were going away for like 3x3 tournaments and things like that. No, they weren't just always sitting out kind of thing. They did have other commitments at times. So hopefully we don't find out that Kobe McDowell-White is a 3x3 fiend and misses half a dozen games. I mean, more power to any player who wants to travel the world playing 3x3. It'd be a great way to see the world. But having watched some Kobe McDowell highlights today, Kobe McDowell White highlights today. It'd be nice to have him in the league full time, and I think they will be. I don't think there's anything to worry about there.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned the connection between some of these players and Matt Flynn, and obviously the NBL Illawarra Hawks program. But another common denominator with a lot of these players is a coach named Joel Carlu. He was the men's coach for the Mackay Meteors last season, who won the NBL1 North title and just narrowly missed that national championship. They had a huge roster. They had Isaac White, Emmett Nah, Todd Blanchfield, CJ Moran, Aiden Krause. Like, it was ridiculous to watch in person, to think it was an NBL1 game. Unfortunately, not having Isaac White at nationals because of his NBL commitments. But I feel like Joel also has been an assistant coach with the Illawarra Hawks NBL side this season. So I wonder if he is also giving some of his sound recommendations of who they can get from the north over to play east for Illawarra in 2025. But based on this roster so far, they are going to be very tough in a sense of not just because of their skill level, like physically they're going to be tough. I know that Mackay Meteors team last season were very quite physical, very high pace, very intense. And if they bring that same level of intensity and caliber to the east with this roster, purely based on what CJ Moran has experienced and what he's going to bring with his defensive intensity, they're going to be really, really tough. They're going to be tough. They're going to make all of your senses really push themselves to the absolute limit of trying to keep up with their speed, whether you're a fan or playing against them. They're going to be great. They're going to be a very tough team. I think it'll be good for the league overall as well if they're going to be such a high caliber and high intensity team. Everyone's going to have to catch up, and that's going to make everyone else improve as well. So the league benefits overall.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes, it's very good. Yes. All right. So we probably expect a lot of that TBA list to hopefully be added. And they haven't announced any imports yet either. Do you think there's a chance they'll get an import?
I don't know. Because as I mentioned, Abercrombie and Dent, it's like you start running out of spots in the starting five to put people. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with bringing an import off the bench. It's just trying to sell an import a spot when you've got, if you're holding out. And you probably might also be getting to the point in time where some imports might not be available until later than you want them, kind of thing. If you've got to run 5 or 6 rounds without your import, you may as well just get a really good local instead.
Yeah, and also the budget. I mean, if you've already announced the likes of Todd Blanchfield, McDowell White, Moran even, and having Toby Campbell relocate potentially, budget is going to be an issue. All right, let's move on to the reigning champions of the NBL1 East men's competition, the Maitland Mustangs. 2024 saw them finish the regular season with a record of 17-3, seeing them place second, but they ended up going home with the Chocolates, winning the NBL1 East Championship and heading to nationals in the same, only a couple months later. Will Cranston-Lown was their top scorer with 20.6 points per game and also led the assists with 5.8 assists per game. Top rebounder was Billy Parsons with 7.6 rebounds per game, who unfortunately couldn't take the court in that grand final, but according to their social media pages, it looks like he is back for 2025. What else are you seeing with some of these stats, Lockie?
A whole lot of firsts. They don't turn it over. They offensive rebound. They get steals. They get blocks. And that is why their net rating is 19.2 points per 100 possessions. I mean, room to improve. I mean, You know you're scraping for things to put in the room to improve when you put opposition bench points on.
Yeah.
I don't think that doesn't even really mean that. It means a bit, but not that much. I mean, they committed 20 fouls per game. Opposition assist rate was good. I mean, but their 3-point percentage could do with a little bit of help. But even that, they were 11th in the league. They weren't horrible, and 29.8% in a league that shoots just like low to mid 30s. I mean, nothing here is really egregiously bad.
Yeah, no, not at all. I think there were probably some games during the season where their fouls, they ended up having a lot of quick fouls in a short period of time, particularly when it was like, in the first 3 minutes of a game. I can't remember what game it was, but I remember one game where Billy Parsons, I think, had 3 fouls within the first 8 minutes or something, which puts them under a lot of pressure. But yeah, not a lot of room to improve. Love that they have Canberra twice this season. That rivalry continues. Central Coast twice, Hornsby, Ku-Ring-Gai Spiders twice, Manly twice, probably another perhaps rivalry starting there with Manly, and Newcastle twice. So not a lot of long road trips for them either, which is probably a good thing. I mean, they've obviously, they don't even have to travel to Albury.
No, so Albury will do the distance double this year, but Newcastle and Maitland, I don't think we'll see Newcastle soon, but Maitland definitely don't go down there.
Awesome. So let's have a look at the roster that they've announced thus far. A lot of usual suspects in the likes of Billy Parsons, Luca Vea, Jay Cole, Daniel Milburn, James Hunter, Josh Clifford, and Christian Little is back. I mean, Maitland must be doing something right, because it's very rare for an import to sign A, in the same league back-to-back, and B, especially for the same club. But Christian Little's back, and even in the women's program, Sydney Hunter is back again with Maitland. So they're doing something right up there. So keep doing your thing, Maitland Mustangs. And Mandrell Worthy being the big lynch card here for Maitland Mustangs coming over from North Bears. How do you think this is all shaping together so far?
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, you say Christian Little came back to the same league, came back to the same team, but without his mate. His mate, Will Cranston-Lowndes, moved on, and he's still re-signed. So they definitely are doing something right. I mean, the obvious question is not about the talent. It's how they fit Mandrell Worthy compared to how they fit Will Cranston-Lowndes, and why. And also they've got to figure out how they replace Matt Gray. That's just the two big questions. I have Will Mortimer in the outs, but he's at college, so once again, that's just at least for the start of the season kind of thing. So, I mean, they've announced 8, and it's a very good 8. We got to remember that Billy was in this roster. He was in the team for most of the season last year. He got injured very late in the piece, so it's not like they were missing him all year. He's not really an in. But yeah, I think it's more a question of fit than of talent at this stage, and what magic Luke Boyle can work.
Yeah, did Mandrell suit up at the Blitz? Did you happen to see him around, or do you remember seeing any clips on NBL1 East Instagram pages at all?
No, I didn't see him at the Blitz. I think I saw some Maitland players milling about, but not him particular, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps. Do you know how he's been spending his off season? Has he perhaps been playing overseas on another contract, and we might have to wait a little while until he gets here?
I'm really not sure. I'm so enamored with him, the idea of him coming to Maitland. Doesn't really look like he's posted much about playing overseas.
No, not a lot on socials, is there? A
No.
little bit quiet. Because I'm interested to see how Little and Worthy are going to be able to gel together. I'm sure it will be fine. And the way that I kind of see it is probably a little bit superficial in a sense where, Little's going to be, in a similar way. Okay, this is my absolute basic knowledge of gridiron. But, in gridiron, you play like you're really good at offense or you're really good at defense, and then you kind of have a coach for each.
Yes.
Or you kind of have a leader for each. I kind of see Christian Little for this Maitland team as the leader of their defensive prowess, and perhaps Mandrell Worthy is going to be more their leader on their offensive end. Or am I just kind of making this a little bit too easy for myself seeing it this way?
I mean, I think they will definitely take the lead on either side, but I think that probably does a little bit of disservice to how good they are at the other end.
Oh, they certainly are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not to take away what they can also offer as individuals on the other respective ends.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of strengths, especially, Christian Little coming into the 2024 season saying that he wanted to be a real pest on defense. He wanted to really showcase that in his debut season. So I think that's maybe planted the seed in my head of like, he's the guy that's going to dog the ball the most.
He is the guy that's going to dog the ball the most.
Yes. But yeah, I'm interested to see if they're able to recruit perhaps someone to fill the shoes of Matt Gray, or I'm also confident that perhaps Coach Boyle is going to be confident in his players like your Parsons, your Vaya, your Cole, who have been doing a lot of the hard work and sticking in the men's program for a while. Maybe they can all just equally kind of start to step up now and contribute either just as much or I think Billy Parsons is going to be a lot more of be able to showcase in that spot and be just as productive, if not more so, than Matt Gray.
Oh, 100%. He can. I mean, we know. I mean, there's a reason he's a cult hero amongst the two of us. But I mean, there's still the guys on that far right column, the TBAs, to come in. And I mean, looking at their youth league, Will Mortimer is listed in their youth league men's roster, and so is Tom Parsons. So, if not this season, there's definitely room for to grow, for players to grow into that role throughout this season into the future. So, bring they can still make a run at it and also have a very good long-term plan here.
Absolutely. And I think I did see from some social media footage via Basketball New South Wales, the NBL1 East socials, that Jack Edwards played at the Blitz. So I'm guessing he is going to be suiting up for the Stangers again, but hopefully he'll be able to play a few more games and not have to go represent his country again.
Yes, the small matter of a touch football World Cup does sometimes take precedence.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, play for your country. It sounds like a pretty good opportunity that you should probably take.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea, especially when you're as good as he is.
Oh yeah, so good. I remember when I first saw him play in youth league a long time ago, and he just blew my mind. His foot speed, the way that he can read the game at that speed. He's still such an outstanding talent. So, well, we're a bit selfish. We just want to come and watch him in the East for a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, we've got on Instagram someone commenting that Jack, awesome guy, heck of a player, very tough defensively. Yeah, I mean, imagine being in the backcourt coming up against Edwards and Little, just dogging the ball. I'd just be I'd be calling a timeout, subbing myself out. going home. See you later. All right, let's roll on down the road over to Newcastle, where the Falcons. But let's start with this 2024 facts first. They finished the 2024 season with a win-loss record of 7-13, finishing 12th overall, meaning they didn't qualify for finals. Their top scorer for 2024 was Leo O'Boyle with 17.8 points per game. Miles Cherry led the rebounds with 10.2 rebounds per game, and Jaden Goodwin with 3.7 assists per game. Talk me through the rest of these stats, Lockie.
Well, their assist rate is great. They move the ball really well, and when you've got Ryan Beastie in there, just basically as an extra ball handler. He finished third for assists. They get a lot of second opportunities. They don't convert them to a lot of second chance points. And they committed a few too many turnovers for my liking last year. I mean, I don't like a turnover rate. I mean, nobody likes a turnover rate that isn't zero. But I think once you start getting up around 20% and you're basically giving away every fifth possession, starts to get tough. But I think the fact that their top scorer last year, Leo O'Boyle, for points per game anyway, he was only there for 8 games and he's already been announced again. So I think that is probably one of the biggest things for them, is who their top scorer is, and hopefully he'll be playing a lot more than 8 games in 2025.
And I know that his last name is O'Boyle and not O'Doyle, but how many times do you think he gets the reference O'Boyle rules?
That is an elite reference.
I'm going to say not enough. I'm going to say not enough. But we would probably have to ask him that personally. Hey, how are you getting hounded with the O'Boyle rules? And how do you feel about this? Because I feel like we could be doing it more.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to, like you said, he was an early announcement. So that does suggest that he's going to be around for the season a lot longer. I actually didn't realize that he played college with Miles Cherry, and that's the connection.
Yes. And
in the same vein that Kyra Evans was able to recruit Nicole Munger with that Michigan connection, and then Alyssa Brett, the men's side, go, hey, let us try that same strategy as well, because we look at their roster. One of the most recent signings is EJ Stevens, who also went to college with O'Boyle and Cherry. So it seems like the men are catching on to something that helped the women's winning formula in the last couple of seasons.
Yes. EJ, yeah. Another Lafayette player. He also went to Minnesota after Lafayette. So there you go. Shout out EJ. I might have to put that on my keyring, on my keys if I get to commentate Newcastle. But I watched actually a few highlights of EJ Stevens. It was first of all, shout out. I can't remember who made the highlight video, but it was very good. It was all sectioned in. Here's his scoring. Here's his assists. Here's that. You get so many highlight videos where it's like, here's him doing this. Here's him doing that. Here's him doing the other, and you're just like trying to find the guy on the court every time. Just tell me what he's tell me this is all his scoring plays so I can watch the guy with the ball. So was able to get to the rack. I liked his 3-point shot as well. I'm not sure what his stats were like, but definitely liked it. I would like to have seen him. There were some plays where he was maybe settling for the mid-ranger a bit, but I don't know if he was just being guarded by an absolute elite defender. But there were certainly times when this is him playing for Cheshire in the UK. So that's where he last played. Which, honestly, judging by some of the players that have come from the UK to here, I think East might even have the edge. I mean, it'd be tough to say, But I mean, yeah, I think he'll do a really. I mean, Cherry and O'Boyle will obviously not. He's been a teammate of both of them. They're not going to say, "Yeah, bring him in," because they've been playing with him and watching him if they don't think he can do a job. And I think sometimes that is better than any video you watch. Especially when it's someone like Miles Cherry. If you get Miles Cherry's tick of approval at Newcastle, it's probably going to be someone who can do a job.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. I don't think they would be pulling just anyone in because as we saw last season and perhaps the season before, Newcastle have announced these kind of big signings, big imports with all these kind of big hype around them, and they haven't eventuated. So I think it's really smart that the likes of O'Boyle and Cherry are pulling on their resources and knowing that they've played with Stevens before. They know what he can do. He's going to be reliable. He's not going to be too much of an unknown and someone that they have to just purely rely on references and highlight tapes for because they, have lived and breathed the wins and losses with him. So I think it's a lot more of a reliable recruit for them. But I also watched some of EJ Stevens footage online. He also looks like he's got a lot of length for another guard, similar to what we were saying about Meek Payne from Hills Hornets. Also another drive first guard, just based on the highlights that I saw. And I think a few of the imports we're going to see this season in the East, more so maybe for the men's competition, or a lot of drive first kind of guards. So it's going to be interesting to see some of our defensive masters of the men's league try and lock that down. Going to be some really fun matchups this season. But yeah, it will, I think adding Stevens is going to give Newcastle another legit scoring option and bolster their backcourt a little bit, because their backcourt is still really talented, because you've still got the likes of Jaden Goodwin who can score, but I think his primary role is getting everyone organized, controlling the tempo, finding the likes of Beastie and Cherry, which he's very, very good at. And we know that he can score, like I said, but I think just adding Stevens is just going to add that scoring power that Newcastle probably lacked last season.
Yeah, I think when I've watched Goodwin, I think I've much preferred him taking a more active role in the offense. Which, I mean, he led the team in assists last year, so clearly was. And I think, just giving him another option to, exactly as you said, to be more involved in the offense rather than just waiting for the ball almost.
Yeah, so with 9 on the roster that have been announced, are we expecting some more TBAs to be added?
I think I've seen they played a preseason game and there were some photos and there were players tagged, but I think a lot of those younger names on that list were tagged in various photos and some of their other youth league guys. But so I would expect maybe 1 or 2 and maybe even some others who are just from youth league or elsewhere to get added. But I mean, you never know when teams pull up players for preseason how many of them are actually going to stick on the final roster. But I'd be shocked if at least a couple of those guys didn't make the final roster.
Yeah, I think so too. Obviously, investment in local talent has certainly been the theme for these types of roster episodes that we've had so far. But let's move on to a team that you are very familiar with, the Sutherland Sharks. I'm going to let you take away this 2024 season fact sheet that you've got prepared here at your leisure.
Oh, well, look, there's a rebounding stat. Sorry, Sutherland, but I think everyone at the club has talked about it. Sometimes we don't rebound as well as we should. Offensive rebound rate low and giving up 12.8 second chance points per game. Too many turnovers and 3-point percentage. I mean, we just haven't had a lot of shooters. And so if one of them's not connecting reliably or if they're not both doing it at least semi-reliably, that falls in a hole pretty quickly. Unsurprisingly, the non-paint 2 scoring and the free throw attempts, points in the paint, sky high, because you get guys like AC going to the rack, Lachlan Hutchison going to the rack, Clarence Amir going to the rack, Brian Williams going to the rack, Jeff Gerlach getting down in the paint. Even Angus Lake doesn't mind taking off with that quick first step of his. So unsurprising that most of the team's statistical strengths come from getting to the basket and not settling for mid-ranges. So, I mean, 8 and 12 had some ins and outs throughout the season, injuries, whatever else. Just we're never really quite able to stitch a proper season together. Claris played 16 games. Adrian Cabrera only played 13. Chris Vera was a good addition, but he took a while. He only played 14 games. And, yeah, just, you know, I mean, a piece like Adrian Cabrera out for 7 of 20 games, that's tough to rearrange your roster and your rotations and keep everything humming along just as well as it was. So, obviously, not the best title defense from the Sutherland Sharks. I think a better team than the circumstances allowed them to show, I think would be the best way to put it. But also could have done some things better themselves.
Yeah, that's right. Like you mentioned before, their record for the 2024 season was 8 and 12. So they finished 11th in that very tight race for the top 8 and didn't qualify for finals, which is unfortunate given that they went nearly all the way the season before. Or they did go all the way the season before, of course. They won the season before.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did. But yeah, let's take a look at the roster for 2025. They'll be under the new coach as well, Sean Roger, who has an absolute wealth of experience with coaching, especially for someone so young too. But yeah, so we've still got Lachlan Hutchinson is back, AC is back, Jeff Gerlach, Angus Lake is back. 2 of the kind of outstanding signings and additions to this roster is Harrison Rayner and Jason Spurgeon.
Yeah, so Jason Spurgeon, we talked about him in an earlier episode. He's the Sydney Kings centre who went to college at Bowling Green. Actually won an award for the entire athletic program. I believe it's called the Iron Falcon. I think might be. Yeah, the Iron Falcon for at Bowling Green University for the athletic program. I think it was actually the first year they awarded it, so I'm not even sure. Yeah, so every team gets in the program gets an Iron Falcon award. So he won that before coming back. Big 7-footer, but doesn't mind shooting a 3. So got a couple of bigs now because Jeff, we are either the shark fin or the 3-point try celebration. So interesting to see how they work together. And then Harrison Rayner, young guard, was on the roster at Melbourne Tigers last year. He's also been listed in our Youth League roster or Youth League 1 roster. So might be splitting a bit of time. But I think the most surprising out is Callum Norris.
Yeah, is he hanging up his boots for good or what's the story?
He is going to play with his mates in Waratah League. So if you liked the pre-COVID Sutherland Sharks Waratah Championship team, you're going to love the 2025 Waratah League Sutherland Sharks. So we got Callum Norris, Brendan Winstanley, Jake Carey, Bailey Muslin, Jake Wilson, and I think a couple of other guys that might have been around. So for all you Sutherland history buffs, Court 3 on a Saturday afternoon, you might have to split your time between NBL1 and Waratah League. But so that'll be that's one out. And then we talked about Claris before. Spencer Musgrove's over in college, and Jordan Hilda's actually gone to play Big V for Warrandyte.
Oh, Warrandyte. Now, the way that I learned that Warrandyte was a place was through Kath and Kim. So I know where Warrandyte is.
My best friend is from Warrandyte.
Oh, there you go. And I doubt that she knows Kath and or Kim.
Probably not. Gemma Potter's also from Warrandyte.
Ah, yeah.
So there you go. But I do have one big news story from Sutherland, and it's straight from the horse's mouth. It's Aaron Webber. He told me that he signed a 4-year Supermax contract. Don't know how. I don't know what a Supermax is. Maybe he gets like a free upsize on his Zinger box on the bus ride home or something. But he's told me he signed a 4-year Supermax with the Sutherland Sharks. So
I was going to ask him when he's going to be added to the roster. I was like, he's a big TBA. Where you at, Aaron? But
he is a big TBA.
That Supermax announcement.
Yeah.
Are you sure he didn't mean Supermax or Mad Max?
Mad Max.
Supermax. Probably breaking ground and setting the new NBL1 East record with his 4-year Supermax. Listen, Aaron, would love to hear the details of your Supermax deal. Jump on one day or send us a DM. But he's very funny.
Yes. But
I was going to ask how you think Jeff Gerlach and Jason Spurgeon are likely to play for each other, like sub each other out, or is there a chance that Gerlach will have to slip into the 4?
See, on the face of it, yes, that's, center. There's only one center. But they're both on the face of it too good to be, spelling each other kind of thing. I mean, you could get into the situation where sometimes they spell each other, and if the situation calls for it, they do play together. The options are open. They can both step out to the perimeter and shoot it, and are both willing to. We know Jeff is great at dishing the ball off. So, do we have a comment?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I'm laughing. Also, still getting used to being live and live streaming, and people can see me. I was just checking on who's watching and commenting on our Instagram live, and Aaron has just let us know that his 4-year Supermax deal is worth $6.4 million. So certainly setting a new record in NBL1 East, NBL1, and probably the NBL as well, or any kind of professional league in Australia. It just cracks me up. I love it. Good on you, Aaron.
All right. Well, I know whose shout it is at Boyles after round 1 then.
I was going to say, by the way, Eastcourt Game are always looking for some sponsors. I mean, any kind of shavings off that 6.4 max deal that you could part with, send us a DM. We're open. We're open to the conversation.
We are. But, returned 3 members of the starting lineup. There's still got to be names to come, obviously. I'm not just saying this. I actually haven't heard much of anything about who the next players are going to be. But, Hutchison's going to be Hutchison, Cabrera, Gerlach, Lake. You know what you're getting with all of them. I think Bailey MacArthur's set to have a breakout year if he gets the opportunity. New South Wales junior representative. Saw him in the Youth League Invitational. He looks really, really good. I know it's Youth League and NBL1's a step up, but, looking good at preseason, even at Youth League levels, a positive sign. So, was almost unstoppable getting to the basket at times was Bailey. So,
and Harrison Rayner, like you mentioned, was playing South last season. Interesting that he's playing the double. He's signed up for the double of Youth League and NBL1 East. So I wonder if he's coincidentally moved to the area for lifestyle, or if he, has just got such a great deal here with the Sharkies that he's willing to play both. But I looked at some of his footage online. He has a lot of energy, this kid. Really high energy player, both ends of the floor. He looks like he's also going to be an absolute pest if he's guarding you. So good luck to all those guys having to be guarded by Harrison Rayner. But also quite a tough scorer. Like, he doesn't mind contact. If anything, he welcomes the contact. He likes to make big plays. Yeah, real high energy guy. I think he's going to inject some useful energy. I shouldn't say useful, but he's going to inject only because he's playing youth league. But very useful energy, very high intensity. I think he's going to be able to bring that to this roster this season, that maybe they needed a bit of a spark compared to their performance last season. So I think he's going to bring a lot of energy. Then the question will be just being able to moderate that energy at the right time, because we can't be going 110% all the time. Like, sometimes you can get away with in youth league. NBL1, different story. So he's going to be exciting.
And Lachlan Hutchison is also coaching Youth League 1 men this year. So not only will he be playing Harrison be playing alongside Hutch, he'll also be being coached by him at a youth league level.
Yeah, okay, very good. Very good. Good insight. We've got a comment here on Instagram Live from the Athlete Lab Performance, and they said, get in the lab so we can be on Aaron's salary. Look, I'd love to, but I don't think my joints would allow that anymore. All right, so yeah, Sharkies looking pretty good. Obviously, still some to add to the roster, but so far, looking pretty good. Excited.
Yeah, and I mean, Josh Dehe and Oliver Smith are also on the Youth League roster, so wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Josh has been in and around the NBL1 roster for a little while now. So definitely opportunities there if they're able to take them.
Very good. All right, let's roll on to our very last team to preview is the Sydney Comets men's team. So in 2024, they had a win-loss record of 12-8, finishing 7th overall, losing the semi-final to Manly Warringah. Their top scorer was Bawali Bales, averaging 28.5 points per game. Top rebounder was Obi Che with 11.2 rebounds per game, and Bawali also the top of the assist ladder with 5.7 assists per game. So some statistical strengths definitely up in the top 5 and 6 in some of their strengths, but also in the very, very lows of some of their rooms to improve. Lockie.
Yes. So, I mean, that free throw percentage has to improve, especially for a team that gets to the rack so often. You can't take 24 free throws per game. That's leaving 8 or 9 points at the line on average per game, shooting 64%. I mean, when your net rating is only 5.2, it could be a lot better if you could even get that free throw percentage up to 71, 72%. I mean, yes, they cop a lot of blocks per game, but they've got a lot of guys who are more than willing to go to the basket. For a team whose offensive rebound rate isn't in their statistical strength, they're still putting up a fair whack of second chance points, which is good to see. And they tend to keep their opponents to a pretty decent field goal percentage. So, I mean, if they can just ratchet it up a little bit on defense in general. I mean, and we've got to remember that Bawali at the end of last season was absolutely ridiculous. So if he can start like that, depending on how things go in Switzerland, when he actually gets back, I think Comets, judging based on what they've got here and what we'll see in the next slide and where they can improve, I think they'll be doing better than 7th this season.
Yeah, because they also have a new coach at the helm. Is that correct?
Yes, both the men's and women's teams at Comets have a new coach at the helm.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. It's great that they were able to retain so many key players for 2025, being Bales, Che, Mundine, Baby Chol, Sinagorak, and they've even they were able to recruit Fiketti from Inner West as well. He looked like he was having a pretty good time at the Blitz. I saw some great highlights on, I think it was 2 Feet in the Paint posted some of his Feketi scoring on Instagram. And Gok Malul. This is a very nice get for Sydney Comets.
Yeah. Did not see that one coming at all. You know, junior national team player. Another addition to the front court for them. So between Johnny, Viliami, and Gok, and I mean, really good start. They're only 7 deep at the moment, and as well as players we've seen snapped around various photos around the way, but there are certainly a very good start to things.
Yeah, I agree. I think adding Feketi is going to be great for them in both ends of the court. I mean, I've even put in my notes here, can we say Gok Malul is Rookie of the Year? Is it too early?
Ooh.
Too early to predict this?
That is a big call. But
hopefully he's able to stay on court long enough, depending if he has any other responsibilities.
The problem with predicting your Rookie of the Year is the number of potential Rookies of the Year the COE have every year.
Oh, of course. And then, I mean, I keep forgetting, is it even called Rookie of the Year in East, or is it Youth Player of the Year?
I think it's Youth Player of the Year. I like Breakout Player of the Year or Young Player of the Year, but you can only win it once. Maybe Emerging Player of the Year.
Yeah.
If you've won it, then you've clearly emerged and you can't win it again.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Once you go forward and you've technically emerged, there's no going back and then re-emerging. You just stay.
Yeah. Charizard can't go back to Charmander.
No, correct. That is correct. That's the best way to describe that. I'm interested. So, I was saying before, I'm really glad that they've able to retain such a high caliber roster as last year, especially under a new coach. But what I'm interested to see is if their systems and their offenses and what they run is going to change under this new coach. So last season, a lot of stuff, everything was going through Bawali to the point where I think he was holding onto the ball for too long and ended up being to his own and his team's detriment. It was different, obviously, in the back end of the season when he came back from injury, really had that spark ignited in him, it looks like, after he played that Indigenous basketball game up here. I think it was at Logan, but here up in Queensland, and he came back a totally different player. He was making so many great plays, so many great shots. But I wonder if the new coach is going to implement some other stuff, because they have such a talented roster that you wouldn't want to waste any of their strengths, right?
Oh, I mean, 100%. I mean, like you said, Bawali, second half of the season, Bawali was just a changed player. But, I mean, we won't know until 11 days from now exactly how it's going to look. But, I mean, Bawali has to be, I'm going to use that term again, the focal point of the offense. But, I mean, you got Anthony Mundine if he can be as good consistently this year as he was on occasion last year, he will take so much of the load in those crunch times when everybody's looking to Bawali or Obi to do something. Anthony Mundine could be the John Paxson hitting the three instead of MJ.
And then we've also got to talk about who you alluded to before, Sharif Saipea. We've got to say he's going to be on the roster as well. We've seen it on a couple of media day clips and similar online. So, and I think the 2 feet in the paint boys just came out and said it.
And I think
and posted
Love of the Game interviewed him and he mentioned it. So it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. Sharif will be back with the Comets, which is going to be awesome too. You know, he's going to be a great backup for these guys if, for whatever reason, injuries, fouls, whatever. Sharif, he's a flat-out baller as well.
Oh, I mean, it's a matter of, I mean, Sharif could go somewhere else and has been other places and played the best part of 40 minutes a night like he did 2 seasons ago at Hornsby. But, he mentioned in that interview in Love of the Game, just the quote that was on it, that the guys on this team are all absolute dogs, and that's spelled DAWGS.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of guy he wants to be around. And that's the kind of environment he wants to be in. So more power to him. He might, and I mean, he'll be more than a backup, I think.
Oh yeah. He'll be heavy in the rotation. Yeah. Love to see it. We just on Instagram as well, we did have a comment asking us to do the Sharks, but unfortunately you've just missed us doing the Sharks. We did do the Sutherland Sharks, but you just missed it. So make sure you either rewatch this video that will be uploaded to our Instagram page at eScottGame, or you can watch the full episode as well on YouTube. If you look up eScottGame, we have our own channel, or we still be streamed on your regular streaming platforms. But I think that more or less wraps up our preview of the men's rosters, Lockie.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to mention was that in the Swiss Basketball League, where Bawali is currently playing, and Leo O'Boyle as well, I'm not sure if anyone else is, but it's a 9-team league, but 8 teams make the playoffs.
Oh.
So it's a fair chance that both Leo and Bawali will be at least in the first round of the playoffs over in Switzerland. So it remains to be seen just how early I was just looking up at Bawali. There's so many other players playing in Europe that will be in the same situation, but just considering we talked about those 2 players as massive parts of their respective teams, they'll remains to be seen how they go when they finish up in Switzerland and when they get back here.
Yeah, wow. 8 of the 9 teams. You'd hate to be that one team that misses out. It almost is a little bit reminiscent of the WNBA, isn't it, though? Isn't there only 1 or 2 teams?
It was 8 of 12. It was 8 of 12. And, fortunately, there's now been expansion, so it'll be slightly better.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right. Yeah, that wraps up our preview of all of the men's rosters that will be featured in NBL1 East for 2025 as best as we can based on the information that was available to us. E.g. Hornsby, we're still waiting. I can't wait for the drop, though. It's just good that it looks like you both have teams that are going to field the court. Just to wrap up the episode, Lockie, have you got any news at all from around the grounds of the East?
Well, Central Coast just spilled the tea, quite literally. Dylan.
They definitely did. Dylan T has officially been announced as part of the Central Coast Crusaders men's team. We actually have a question here on Instagram, Lockie. Where did Ben White go for this year? Great question. He was first with Hornsby and then most recently with Sydney Comets. He was on that TBA list with Sydney Comets, but hasn't been announced anywhere else yet. Have you seen him? Have you heard any rumors, Lockie, about Ben White?
I have not. I might have to get down to Alexandria and start poking around, asking some questions, or maybe just DM people on Insta.
Yes, or alternatively, people can DM us on Instagram at eScottGame if you've got any intel that you are at liberty to share. I'm hoping that Ben White will return to that Comets team. I'm trying to recall if I saw him on any glimpses of media days, etc., on social media, but I can't recall. So Ben White, TBA, hopefully back with the Comets. But yeah, have you got any other news? I think the only piece of news I've got is that the Inner West Bulls will be playing part of their season at the Sydney Uni venue.
Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, it's a much better venue than ELS Hall Park. No offense to or many of the other venues they played at. Yeah, not really in their area. It's funny. It's probably closer to the Inner West than their regular stadium, but
correct.
But regardless, it's still a much better venue for teams to play than where they played in the past. So, yeah, bit different. Good venue. Holds some very nice memories for me as well.
Definitely does. And yeah, just a better grandstand. Talking to the 2 Feet and the Paint Boys about this change in venue as well. Perhaps there was some issue with using the venue with the local council or something like that too. But I think Sydney Uni, as bad as the parking can be around there, it's still super easy to get there, like when you're by train and foot. The grandstand and the facilities are a lot better. I'm hoping that it would attract more people from, like you said, the actual inner west to come and watch them play. But yeah, that's exciting times for them.
Certainly is. Things are happening with the Inner West Bulls. As I alluded to as we were talking about the Blitz, they might have a couple more signings to come, but we can get into that when we discuss the remainder of the women's rosters.
Correct. And yes, so did you have any more news?
I don't think I really do, unless I've said something to you during the week I'm not remembering that you're trying to get me to talk about.
No, sorry. I was just making sure that I'm like, I just want to make sure I haven't missed anything, or that I'm giving Lockie enough opportunity to share something. But maybe you can share with us some more info about that lovely jersey you have hanging in the background.
Well, first of all, it is the furthest thing from brand new, as you said earlier, because that is a 2014-15 Sydney Uni Flames jersey. So Leilani Mitchell's first season with the Flames. So I put it up because I like Leilani Mitchell.
I mean,
it's one of 5 jerseys I have, Flames jerseys I have from that season.
Wow. What are the other 4 that you have?
Katie Ray Emsbury.
Yep.
Hayley Moffat. Former North Star Nicole Howe. And one with my own name on the back in yellow that I got signed by the entire team.
Very cool. Very cool. And sorry, I did say brand new before, but what I meant was it's new in a sense that you've changed it from the previous episodes. Yeah.
It's definitely not brand new. It has been worn a lot.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely not brand new. It still looks in good nick from here.
Including to Dandenong Stadium for the grand final in 2017.
Ah, very nice. I always have this silly fear about supporting the away team when I go to a game and wearing the away stuff. I'm like, I'm good. Is my safety going to be compromised, or are people going to be okay with this? But that wraps us up. It was quite a long episode, but I feel like we really got stuck into the remaining men's rosters. Some really exciting players being announced for the men's competition so far. And the next episode, naturally, we will showcase the final 8 rosters for the women's competition that we haven't already previewed in a previous episode. And that will include some similar clubs to what was featured in this episode. So we will cover the Crusaders, Hills Hornets, Hornsby Ku-Ring-Gai, Illawarra Hawks, Inner West Bulls women. I'm pretty sure we need to do Newcastle women, Sutherland women, and Sydney. I think that's it.
Maitland.
Maitland. How can I forget the Stangers? So that will be our next episode of the final women's rosters. And then we get straight into the season.
Woo! Speaking of seasons, although we don't start till March 29th in NBL1 East, please, if you can, get out to a Waratah League game this weekend. It all kicks off. I think there's a Friday night game maybe at Penrith. And then Saturday, it's on for young and old, but mostly young because it's a lot of youth league.
Yeah, very good. Very good plug. I forget that sometimes that will start sooner than NBL1 East. So very good plug indeed. And so we'll be back again next week. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If we get a certain number of subscriptions, it means that we can monetize our episodes a little bit with the Google ads. So please subscribe to YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at eScottGame, and you can also find us on Facebook, where we'll be live streaming very, very soon. But in the meantime, Lockie,
don't sleep on the East.
Very good, my friend. Thanks, everyone, for watching or listening in the future. We'll see you next week.